Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Birding the Calendar, Where to Go Birding in April and May. One of the best times of year because of spring migration. We're seeing a lot of returning species and just a lot more activity. So if you're looking to get out and go birding in the next couple of months, you've come to the right place. I'm excited to turn it over to Luke Stafford, who's going to talk about the next couple of months of birding and the best spots for you to explore. All right, go ahead, Luke.
Awesome. Thanks, Kirsten. Sorry, I was clicking on a few things. You did a great job introducing and starting us all off. I really appreciate you doing that. And thank you to all of you who have joined us today. And we're going to talk about where to go birding in Southeast Arizona in the months of April and May. Two of the best times to go birding down here. There's never a bad month to go birding, but really April and May, we get all these new birds coming up through, migrating up here to breed or migrating through here to go up further north. And just like this morning, I was at Sweetwater Wetlands and we had a Nashville warbler, and I hadn't seen a Nashville warbler since like September of last year. So it's like meeting all your old friends again and having them back. Even though Nashville warblers only move through here, they breed further north, but then we'll see them for like a month and then they'll come back in September, August, September. So it's pretty cool. And so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk about these different places and specifically the areas that I'm going to highlight for today. Going to be going up the Catalina Highway up to Mount Lemmon. So it's for some various reasons, haven't really talked much about the different spots going up Mount Lemmon in the past year and a half or however long we've been doing this series. And I felt like, well, this is definitely the time to do so. There's been there's a huge fire up there in the summer of 2020. And so I know that kind of stopped us from going up there quite a bit. Some areas were closed because of that for quite some time. But this is the year when we need to start getting back up there. So this is a Cordilleran flycatcher, very similar to Pacific slope flycatcher and actually really similar to a lot of different flycatchers we see. But I just chose this one because it loves higher elevation. It's pretty interesting. It's got this little white eye-ring that kind of looks like a teardrop back behind it. Pacific slope will have the same type of eye-ring, but they won't be at as high elevation. So here's a painted redstart as well. This specific painted redstart I saw at Madera Canyon. So, think about these locations as we talk about, like, we're going to talk specifically about Mount Lemmon and the Catalina Mountains, but a lot of these birds can be seen at other mountain ranges around Southeast Arizona as well. So whether it's the Santa Ritas, Madera Canyon, or the Huachucas and Carr Canyon, or the Chiricahuas and Cave Creek Canyon, like all those different spots, small differences, but still some of the same principles of birding exist for those areas because they're really similar in habitat. So when we get into April and May, look, we talked about snakes earlier, and actually one of the things to expect in April and May that we just need to be aware of, especially as birders, because our eyes are always trained up higher than the ground that we're walking on. So not only do we have to be careful of the rocks and roots, but here in April and May, we got to be careful about snakes. Keep our eyes down below. Sometimes look for those rattlesnakes that are Mary's backyard or Irene's house. Be careful about that. But just be looking for those, especially when you get in these higher elevations. There are some really cool snakes and even rattlesnakes at the higher elevations that you wouldn't see down here. So you're going to want to look for tiger rattlesnakes and Arizona black rattlesnakes. There's just a lot of cool looking herps that are out there. So train your eyes, look for those too. What you can also expect for April and May is that as you get in higher elevation, you'll begin to see more diversity in species. When in the winter, it's the higher elevations don't often hold a whole lot of different species of birds. There are the birds like Steller's jays and Mexican jays that stay there year round. But a lot of these warblers and flycatchers, tanagers, they aren't there all year round. They start coming up there the middle to late April. And so you begin to have like higher diversity at the higher elevations in these months. And so that's why it's good to go and visit during this time. There's just a lot more birds up there. And spring migration kind of peaks the end of April through the first part of May. So, depending on when you're here in town. So if you go up the Catalina Highway at the beginning of April, it's gonna be totally different than you going up at the middle at the beginning of May. Totally different. So like dusty cap flycatchers won't be in until later in April. Chipping sparrows won't be around the first part of May. They'll be around the first part of April. So it's just, even though we're combining these 2 months together, there's a lot of differences that happen from April 1st to May 31st. Huge differences because there's so much that happens during that time frame. It's also really important to get out early during these months because it is starting to get pretty hot out. Yesterday was an exception. And of course, we'll probably have some more exceptions, some other colder days before it starts getting really hot. But you can expect Tucson to be in the 80s, 90s, and even get into the 100s in May. And the top of Mount Lemmon usually is about 30 degrees difference. So if it's 100 degrees here, it will be 70 or 70-ish up there in Summer Haven. But some of these lower elevation spots, you really want to get out there pretty early. And even in the higher elevations, you'll get a lot more birds if you're out there at 8 or 9 o'clock than you would at 11, noon, or 1 o'clock. Or 2 o'clock. There's big differences depending on what time you get out there. So I always like to get out there early. I do like to start at lower elevation, work my way up to higher elevation. That tends to work out a little bit better because if you're in a canyon or higher elevation and it's still cold out, like once that sun starts hitting everything, though, that's when the birds will really start moving. The cool thing about April and May, and we're going to touch on this in different areas. Let me silence my phone here. Sorry about that. Cool thing about April and May is that it is a great time for owls. I don't know how many of you love to go look for owls or listen for owls. You have to either stay up late or you have to get up really early. But it is really neat. Some of my favorite experiences birding have been looking for owls. So we'll talk about that as well too this afternoon. Let's go to our first spot here. We'll talk about the Catalina Highway a little bit here first, I guess. Beautiful broad-tailed hummingbird, picture taken by my friend Dan Weiss. You can expect a lot of broad-tailed hummingbirds in the higher elevations of the Catalina Mountains, especially around Summer Haven. A little bit different than that Andes hummingbird that we're familiar with here. So it's just the gorget is brilliant red with that white underneath. And they're kind of a wide hummingbird. They always seem to have like a really wide throat to me. But so here's a few things about birding the Catalina Highway. When I say it really gets hot beginning late April, I don't mean temperature, I mean like the birding. The birding in late April on the Catalina Highway is amazing. It's really like late April. If I could go anywhere, it would probably be like Rose Canyon Lake, or it would be walking the Sycamore Reservoir Trail out of Gordon Hirabashi Campground. These are areas that we'll talk about later today. But late April is amazing migration through there, and the breeding birds coming back. And yeah, it's a fabulous time to be out there. The thing with the Catalina Highway, I remember the first time that my wife and I visited Southeast Arizona, and the first full day that we had, we went up the Catalina Highway. And what I love about it is just so easily traverse, and it's accessible. It's a paved road all the way up. There's picnic areas and trailheads and campgrounds, and wow, it can get really busy on the weekends, but if you're there during a weekday, it can be very peaceful. It can be very nice. It's not as peaceful during a weekend, so just be aware of that. But and the reason it gets so busy is because it is very accessible. We don't have roads that go up in the Rincon Mountains. You have to hike up there. And we just had that one road going up in the Santa Ritas that's paved into Madera Canyon. So wherever there's paved roads and easily accessible picnic areas, you're just going to run into a lot of people. It also makes it super nice for us. You know, we don't have to take the Reddington Pass Road or the Rock Corral Road or Ruby Road to have high clearance vehicle or anything like that. You can take your Prius up there and park just about anywhere you want to go. So it's really nice. And then what's the most amazing about this road and this birding trail that we're going to talk about is that there's so many different habitats that you go through. These are just some of them: Sonoran desert scrub, the oaks that you drive through, and the chaparral, just like the low bushes that are full of rufous crowned sparrows and black chin sparrows and stuff like that. And the Madrean pine oak, which is that gets its name from the Sierra Madre Mountains that come up from Sonora, Mexico. And then you get the ponderosa pine, the mixed conifer forest, which is kind of big influences from the Rocky Mountain Range that's coming from the north down into southeast Arizona. So you have this confluence of the two mountain ranges, that's what makes the Sky Islands of southeast Arizona so unique. And specifically for the Catalina Mountains, has a lot of Rocky Mountain influence. So that's why you get mountain chickadees in the Catalina Mountains, and you don't get mountain chickadees in the Santa Ritas or the Huachucas or the Chiricahuas. So it's really unique in that way. And then you have that Sierra Madre influence, which brings up like hepatic tanager and brings up red-faced warbler that you just don't get in the Rocky Mountains as you go further north. It's pretty cool. Any questions up to this point before we get into specific locations? I see a couple things in the chat there, but I can't see the chat itself.
Yeah, nothing. Nothing. I don't think that needs to be addressed out loud.
Okay. All right. So the first stop that I'm going to talk about is actually so I'm going to have like little mile markers throughout this whole series. So as we go up the Catalina Highway, you set your odometer at the base of Mount Lemmon at this little road called Mount Lemmon Short Road. Now I'm going to reshare my my screen, and I'm going to go to not eBird. All right, Google Maps, which is always our friend, and I'll show you where Mount Lemmon Short Road is at and how to access the Catalina Highway. So here's Tucson, and in Sabino Canyon is right here. This road right here, this white line that goes up into the green, which is the Coronado National Forest, this is the Catalina Highway. And you can see there's this road that goes up diagonally up through the northeast part of Tucson. We'll scroll in and we'll see it. That's called the Catalina Highway right here. So we're going to go up here, and you can see where the border of the Coronado National Forest is at. And let's go in a little bit more, and you're going to see here's Mount Lemmon Short Road right here. So this is where you're going to set your odometer if you want to base it. So these mile markers I'm going to talk about, they all come from the Finding Birds in Southeast Arizona guide that Tucson Audubon puts out. So if you have that guide, you already have those mile markers. Talks a little bit more about each of those spots. But this is where we set our odometer. And I like to, if I'm going up there early in the morning and I want to add some owls to my species list, it's a little road right here is a great spot for elf owls and sometimes western screech owls as well. So I'll get up here really early and so I'm gonna go to satellite. And you can see when you take this Mount Lemon Short Road, you're gonna pass over this little wash right here. And once you pass over this little wash, what I like to do is I like to just kind of park on the edge of the road. I think maybe like right here. They usually park like right there. And there are some houses around here. So I've never had any problem just parking here. So let's pretend it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. That might be, I mean, sometimes if you want to look for owls, you got to get out there really early. So 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, you come here and you just park. And what I do is I just get out of my car and I listen. And there's so many cool things about just like being in the dark and listening in the Sonoran Desert. There's a lot of different sounds and calls that you hear. But often I'll park there and I'll wait about 5 minutes and listen, and I'll hear elf owl, I'll hear western screech owl, and could hear great horned owl. I'm not a big fan of doing playback for owls. A lot of times you can hear the owls without playing any playback at all. So when I talk about listening for owls, that's just what I do is I go out and I stop the car. Sometimes I'll walk away from the car a little bit so I'm not hearing it, any of it like settling down from after the drive. And I walk away and I just stand still and listen. And so I really like this spot because I often hear elf owls. And what I realized is I forgot to share my screen with the sound. So I'm gonna redo this. And let's listen to the elf owl. So hey, Kirsten, so I'll ask you this question. You're easy to, I know that you'll respond. So how would you describe the sound of the elf owl call? What would you say?
I don't know, it almost sounds like some kind of dolphin or something.
Yeah, that's great. So it's really good to put those kind of clues with what you're hearing so that you can remember it. So think of Kirsten and the dolphin right here. I'm gonna play it again. So kind of like Flipper, or it's kind of like a laugh, kind of hear a laugh in there too. But,
sorry for a second, I'm gonna undo this.
Oh, yeah, Susie, if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. Thank you. And then, yeah, so not everyone likes to get up super early and listen for these guys, but some do, and you might think about doing it this year. If you go up just a little bit further, one of the first spots I always like to make early in the morning. So I usually visit the Babad Doag Vista Point fairly early. I do like to start early. And the best time to be here is early because this is low elevation. This is saguaros, Sonoran Desert scrub, and it gets hot. So the birds tend to get really quiet later on during the day. So if you're here, a little bit after sunrise is a great time, and not only a great time for some of these wrens and black-throated sparrow and pyrrhuxia, but oftentimes, almost every time I've been there right at sunrise or before sunrise, great horned owl is almost always calling in this area. And again, like I said, April and May are great for owls. And great horned owl loves these saguaros, and sometimes you get to see them perched up on top of them. Kind of like this gilded flicker that we see here. This is the only spot as you're going up Mount Lemon where you can pretty reliably get gilded flicker, and this is what it sounds, also kind of a laugh sound. We'll do that one more time. kind of a back and forth kind of laughing sound. And so they, unlike our northern flickers, they have yellow under their wings, and then they have this really nice cinnamon crown, and along with that black crescent on the chest, just like northern flicker does. But one of my favorite spots right in the saguaros. So this is about the highest level of saguaros. Once you get past the Babad-Doag Vista Point, the saguaros start to fade out. And I'll show you on the map a little where this is at. So if you start here at the Mount Lemon Short Road and you go up, and you can see the scenic overlook is right here. It's beautiful too. In fact, let's click on that. I think that'll show us some pictures. This is what it looks like right there. If you're there at night, you look out over the lights of Tucson. Pretty cool, pretty awesome, really. And there's a trail that goes north. This is Soldier Trail. It'll go, I think that's Soldier Trails over here. This is the Babad-Doag Trail. Really open area. Don't do this trail unless you're doing it like really early in the morning, because you'll get totally sunburned if you go later on. All right, so once you go past Babad-Doag, the next spot that I'll go to is Molino Basin, and there's a big campground right here, and I'll show you some pictures of it. But you can actually go either way. The campground's over here, and there's a nice little parking area right here, or well, you can park here and then you can cross over, and there's a trail that goes along a nice little creek right here as well. Let's go to this. So this is what Molino Basin looks like. This is the entrance to the campground. This is a field trip that I led with my colleague Matt Griffiths back in 2017 with the Southeast Arizona Birding Festival. I think we were looking at probably a blue grosbeak at this time. Blue grosbeaks will come in kind of like middle to late May. It's a great spot for those, along with summer tanagers, and talk about some of the other birds that we can see here. But this is getting out of the Sonoran Desert and into these oaks. You can see this large oak that's overhanging the road right here. This is also where I saw my very first ever greater roadrunner. So I remember 2009, went there with my wife, got out, and there was a roadrunner right next to the bathroom. So pretty amazing memory to have at this campground. So it's a pretty fun spot to stay, and lots of memories. Also, I didn't talk about this back here, but I also have on here like how long I would kind of stay at this location to go birding. So when it comes to the Babad-Doag Vista Overlook Point, it's usually just a really short time frame, and not a whole lot of time to be spent there, just like 5 to 10 minutes. But at Molino Basin, you can walk the trails, you can walk through the campground, and you could spend around an hour and a half there, if you really want to explore it. Again, I would say this is definitely needs to be an earlier morning location, because it is lower elevation still. I think it's like around 3,500 feet elevation, I think, or 4,035, something like that. And so it does get hot. I've camped here in April, and it is, believe me, gets really hot. So get there early. That's also, again, when you'll see the most birds. Some of the birds that you can expect to see are listed here. This is a hooded oriole. Pretty, all orioles are beautiful, but the hooded oriole with this long kind of decurved beak in the black throat with the bright orange. This one on the agave stalks just kind of really pops out. But lots of colorful birds can be seen here at Molino Basin, along with the hooded oriole, black-headed grosbeak. I mentioned the blue grosbeak, summer tanager, and then in the evening or early morning, again, thinking about owling, common orwell and great horned owl would be pretty common through here. Maybe western screech owl as well. You're not quite high enough for some of the higher elevation owls, but you know, the oaks tend to provide a lot of food resources for ash-throated flycatcher, Bell's vireo, and then you have a combination of canyon towhees and Abert's towhees there. And probably for the first couple of weeks in April, you could probably get some green-tailed towhees as well. So lots of cool birds right through there. See, Kirsten, feel free to jump in if there's any questions that come in on these locations. Here's another oriole. This is a Scott's oriole. Actually, my favorite oriole. I like this one more than the hooded oriole. But really the best spot for Scott's oriole that I've ever found here in Southeast Arizona is here at Gordon Hirabashi Campground and the adjoining Arizona Trail that goes right through the campground. This guy right here has probably the most beautiful song of any oriole that I've ever seen or heard. And this is what he sounds like. Kind of like a meadowlark. I'll play it one more time. Very bubbly, musical, when a lot of other orioles tend to sound kind of, they're kind of grating, kind of harsh noises or rattling, like other blackbirds. The orioles are very similar to blackbirds in that regard. But the Scott's oriole, beautiful song. Gordon Hirabashi Campground is just above Molino Basin. So you have the Molino Basin Campground here, right on this big curve. And then as you travel west after that curve, the next left is going to be the road into Gordon Hirabashi Campground. Now, Gordon Hirabashi, a Japanese American who actually, you know, back during World War II, we had Japanese intern camps. And so one of those was here at this campground. And Mr. Hirabashi, there's a whole history behind it that if you go here, you can read more about it. But basically he lived up in Washington in the Northwest and was sent down here. And there's a lot of, there's a whole story behind it. And so the campground is now named after him. And so you go there, there's some interpretive signage that you should read about, think about what that means historically for us, what it means for us now. And it's good to think about that, even beyond birds. But you come into this campground, I'm gonna turn on the Google map here, turn this part on. So you come in here. Sometimes, I can't remember, I think they have a gate somewhere in here that they put up at the beginning of May, I think is when they put the gate up. So you can't camp in here after a certain time. And I think it's after April, you can't camp in here. So instead, you'll park right in here, or you see some spots here too, where you can park. And but then you can walk through the gate and walk down this road. And then it deads end. This is like a group campsite here. And then the Arizona Trail, you can see that labeled right here. There's an entry point for the Arizona Trail right here. And depending on if you want to go for a long hike, this Arizona Trail goes all the way down here. Actually, going to go all the way over here to Sycamore Reservoir. So from Gordon Hirabashi Campground to Sycamore Reservoir, it's about a 2-mile hike. And so it's not accessible for everyone, but it is a super nice hike to do, especially all of April through the beginning of May. There's not a whole, it can be kind of exposed when it comes to sun. So you want to do it early, but I always find a lot of, during migration, a lot of olive-sided flycatchers through there, western wood peewees, and a lot of other flycatchers, but mostly Scott's orioles. So it's a great, that hike is great for Scott's Orioles, but you can also pick those up right here in the campground area too, along with Woodhouse's scrub jay and a few other birds. But I love this spot. That hike is one of my favorites here in Southeast Arizona. And if you don't do the hike, then you can just walk down this road and walk back probably a half an hour time frame, something like that. But if you do the hike, you're going to want to plan for about 4 hours, 4.5 hours, or something like that. Other birds that you can find through there, of course, Cassin's kingbird will be coming in, if not already there. They'll be pretty prominent. Blue-gray gnatcatchers are one of the most prominent birds along that campground area. They love the chaparral, the oaks that are through there. And good opportunity for sparrows like Rufous crowned or black-chinned. Black-chinned can be pretty tough sometimes, and Rufous crowns seem to be getting tougher. So I'm not too sure about those, but I put them in there because that's where I've seen them in the past. And also golden eagle. Kind of always want to have your eyes peeled upwards for golden eagle, especially in the Molino Basin, Gordon Hirabashi area. So they must nest somewhere, breed somewhere around there, but I'm not sure where. But it's a good area. Any questions up to this point?
Nothing yet.
Okay. And everyone, feel free to take yourself off of mute at some point if something arises that you want to ask about, or raise your hand. That's always a good thing to do too. All right, so let's keep moving up into higher elevation and get into maybe for some of you your very favorite habitat, which is the Madrean pine oak. What's cool about it is that you don't find it in very many other places in the United States. A little bit in southwest New Mexico. And of course, you find a lot of Madrean pine oak as you go down in Sonora and into Mexico. But right here in Southeast Arizona, it's the most accessible Madrean pine oak habitat that you can find. Now, the Bear Canyon and General Hitchcock campground area, you can see mile 9.9 through 11.7. It's kind of this, once you start weaving around on the Catalina Highway past Gordon Hirabashi, you'll come up here, you'll come by this vista overlook. I usually skip that. But then you go up here and you can see this big turn right here, this hairpin turn. So before you get to that hairpin turn, about maybe just right where this Y is at on the General Hitchcock Highway, from about that Y all the way up to this big hairpin turn, you come into juniper, a mix of juniper and pine and oak. That's considered the Madrean pine oak woodlands. And there's a really unique subset of birds that loves this type of woodland. And you won't find them anywhere else. And what's really nice here is that there's a set of picnic areas right through this section before the hairpin turn. You have cypress picnic area, middle bear picnic area, and then there's a Chihuahua pine picnic area somewhere too. I think that's maybe right over here. Can't remember, one side or the other. There's two on this side and one on this side, probably Chihuahua pine. And then you have this campground. I usually don't bird the campground as much because I don't like walking through people's campground. So this area is open for camping. Yeah, so like I said, the Gordon Hirabashi campground ends, I think, either the end of April or the end of March. And then when that one ends, then they open up these higher elevation campgrounds, which includes General Hitchcock. So oftentimes there's people camping in there. I don't like walking through their campsites or anything like that, but I'll bird these picnic areas, and there's a little trail. You can see the trail a little bit better when we come down in here. Maybe you can't see it. Oh, here's Chihuahua pine picnic area, but there's a trail that goes in, kind of weaves its way around the highway on either side and goes up. You can see how thick the trees are right through here. So that gives you an idea of what kind of habitat is through there. So let's go back over here and talk about some of the birds we can see there. This is a Grace's warbler, really yellow throat. Some of you, maybe if you're from the eastern United States, you're used to yellow-throated warblers. It's kind of similar to that. Different little body shape, and then they have some wing bars that are different, but they both have this yellow throat, the Grace's warbler. They like to be way up high in pine trees. So you gotta like crink your neck and look up and look for those Grace's warblers way up in the pines. You can see that's what it's on right here. And it's a very common bird of this area. They start coming in about the second week of April. So again, if you're there, later in April, you have a better chance of seeing them. But they're really common, along with some of these others. You have dusky cap flycatchers and white-breasted nuthatches, Mexican jays, and then I put some of the night birds on here as well. Mexican whippoorwill, flammulated owl, whiskered screech owl. We'll get to those owls here pretty soon. Here's what Chihuahua Pine Picnic Area looks like. So you can see the different pine, ponderosa and junipers in there. Now here's one of those owls that I was talking about. This is a flammulated owl. What's one of the first things you notice about this flammulated owl? What jumps out to you? Anything? Look at its eyes. Black eyes. So many owls have like yellow eyes. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. I think barred owls have dark eyes, if I remember right, but also flammulated. So if you ever see a little owl with dark eyes, that's going to be a flammulated. Now, I'll be honest, I've actually never seen a flammulated owl. I've only heard them a lot. So you may not ever see a flammulated owl, but if you're going to hear a flammulated owl, this right here, those campgrounds are the best spots to hear them. Now, I have an amazing flammulated owl story that I'm going to share with you. First, I'm going to show you exactly where I was at when this story happened. Okay, so I was here at the Cypress Picnic Area, and you pull off the General Hitchcock Highway, which is another name for Catalina Highway, and you come down. It's paved, but you come down, and there's a little wash right here. You cross over the wash, and you can see there's like a little parking area right here where these two cars are at. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. This is April of 2020, and my son and I were doing our Tucson Audubon Birdathon. And so we're doing this big day, trying to see as many birds as possible in one day. I think we ended up with like 130 or something like that. But we had already been to Reed Park. That was like at 2 o'clock in the morning to spotlight a snow goose. And then we went up and stopped at that Mount Lemon Short Road for the elf owls. And then we stopped here at the Cypress picnic area. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And we pulled into this parking spot right here, probably right where this car is at. And, we're tired. I mean, we're pumped. We're really pumped because like this big day, but also it's 4 o'clock in the morning. And we get out. As soon as we get out, there's this huge flash of light. Couldn't even figure out what it was at first. This huge flash of light, and I can't remember if there's a noise or if I'm just like putting the noise into it myself, but you looked up into the sky and the whole sky like lit up. I mean, it was pitch dark. It was pitch dark and all of a sudden the whole light just like flared up, and there's this huge meteor. I think it was a meteor. I don't know exactly what it was, that just like zoomed through the sky. And we just like looked at each other. My son, he was 12 at the time, or 11. He was 12. And we just couldn't believe it. We're like, what is going on? In fact, we were a little scared at first. And so we kind of, our hearts calmed down after we saw and witnessed that experience. Our hearts calmed down. We started listening. Almost right off the bat, we heard Mexican whippoorwills, and then the flammulated owl started calling. Is the flammulated owl just has like this single note. He goes, boot, boot, boot. And then the whippoorwill's going, whippoorwill, whippoorwill in the background. It was just like a cacophony of night birds all around us right after that huge flash. So I just had to share that. That was one of my experiences of owling at night that just, man, I'll never be able to forget that. But here is what Mexican whippoorwill and flammulated owl sounds like together. So I'm gonna play this. At first, it's just gonna be the Mexican whippoorwill, but then the flammulated owl really starts to come in. So keep your ears peeled for that sound. Here we go. The flammulated owl is really faint in the background. So to me, I mean, the Mexican whippoorwill almost drowns it out, but then you hear this boot, boot. And so that's what you want to listen for. And here's some tips about owling along the Catalina Highway Road. If you want to do it on a weekday, don't even think about trying to do it on a weekend, because if you, even at 4 o'clock in the morning, you'll have cars going by at different times. And owling is just really tough when you have any other kind of background noise. So I always like to go on weekdays. And then late April, early May is the best. Now we'll talk about another type of owl coming up here real soon that's a little bit better to, you could start anytime actually for this other owl. But for flammulated, Mexican whippoorwill, whiskered screech owl, late April, early May is the best. And then I always like to do, instead of it in the evening, because there's more traffic in the late evening, I like to do early morning where there's even less traffic, like around 4 o'clock in the morning. So I know that's super early, but if you want an experience, go ahead and give it a try. So probably my favorite spot along the whole stretch of the Catalina Highway is Rose Canyon Lake. Rose Canyon Lake is where I would spend most of my time. Like if I was going up or down and checking out all these different spots, I'd spend most of my time here. It's got great ponderosa pine habitat. It does cost $10 to go into Rose Canyon Lake. You have to pay a fee to get through there, outside of the regular Coronado National Forest fee. But the habitat's really good, and there is the lake at the end can be good. I don't have it on here, but can be good for common blackhawk. They've nested there in the past. But this is also the only spot where you can find buff-breasted flycatcher in the Catalina Mountains. Rose Canyon Lake is just, you just keep going on this highway. You go around the hairpin turn, and you have another hairpin turn here at Windy Point, which is kind of another cool vista point to look out over the city of Tucson. And then you'll go up through, there's a bunch of hoodoos, the big rock formations, all through this section right here after Windy Point. It's beautiful. You can see Rose Canyon Lake here on the left. And this road weaves through a bunch of campground spots. And there is a, as you come down here, let's see if I can point it out for sure. You'll come down this road and the campgrounds start here. This area is called Lizard Rock Group Camp. So there's like a group area right here. And this is the spot for buff-breasted flycatcher. So you don't go all the way down to the lake for buff-breasted flycatcher. You stop at, I think it's called Lizard Rock Group Camp. So right on this is a big drop. So this is, this can be a long walk from where I've done it, but it's really long. You can park here along the highway and just pay $1 to go all the way down to the lake. The foot traffic's only $1, so I'm cheap. So I parked up here and walked down here and just paid $1 instead of $10. But it's a long walk, and there's a lot of elevation gain and loss. So you come all the way down here, and the lake is here. So what I would suggest for you to do is not to walk all that, but to drive in, pay the $10, stop there at the Lizard Rock for a little bit to look for a buck-breasted flycatcher, and then drive through the campground, then park down at the very end. There's a nice parking area right here. During camping season, there's a little like store thing right here where you can get ice cream, stuff like that. And then there's a trail, a really fairly accessible trail that goes from the parking area over to the lake. And this whole section right here, this is really good for, again, Grace's warbler, pygmy nuthatch, western bluebird, red-faced warbler, a lot of warblers right through here. And greater peewee is another flycatcher to be looking in this area. But Rose Canyon Lake is really one of my favorite spots. Now this road right here, is called Incinerator Ridge Road. And you see I got 2 pictures of warblers. I got red-faced warbler, Townsend's warbler. This is kind of like warbler heaven in late April, May, and then again in August and September. Like, I'll show you where on the map this road is at, but it's just every time I go through there, I always see tons of warblers. And so along with warblers, you also get a chance for mountain chickadee. You get Steller's jays. So as you get to this higher elevation, this is right on the edge of ponderosa pine and mixed conifer forest. So you get into that higher, you're not moving out of like the Sierra Madre influence, but you're moving into more Rocky Mountain influence. So you start getting mountain chickadee, Steller's jay, American robin, red-breasted nuthatch, opportunities for those. So red-breasted nuthatch and robin, not so much in this area, but a little bit higher. But you do start getting Steller's jays, hairy woodpecker, things like that. So as you move up the highway, you just go a little bit further from Rose Canyon. Let's go back to our different layer here. And so here's the Rose Canyon Lake turnoff. And you keep going up, up, up. And then this right here. Okay, here we go. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to find and easy to miss. So this is Palisades Visitor Center. If you get to Palisades Visitor Center, you've gone too far for Incinerator Ridge. Incinerator Ridge Road will be, yeah, there it is, right there. Just pops up. So this is it. Let me show you what it looks like in the best way that I've experienced the birding. So I'm gonna click right here, and it's gonna give me an opportunity to look at the road. All right, so you can see this picture was taken in the winter. You got some snowbank there. And then down here, here's the highway looking. So if you're coming from Rose Canyon Lake, you'd be coming up towards this picture, towards our view. And sometimes this road there, I can't remember if it's April 1st or May 1st that this road opens up. And people do go on this, drive on this road and do some dispersal camping on this road. It's a pretty short road. It's like maybe half a mile at the most. It can be a little bit of a bumpy road, a little bit of a slope. So if you're hesitant about driving on roads that are off pavement and everything, what I suggest is just doing what this guy did. And you don't want to block the road, but park off on the side of the road, and then walk up it. It's not if you take your time, it's pretty accessible. There is some slope on it. And there are some rocks and roots. So that's why it might be better to park outside of it. but it's not very long and you can go at your own speed. And if you're there during a weekday, there shouldn't be a whole lot of people through there. If you're there on a weekend, it is a very popular spot to go camping. So just be aware of that. But this little road will take you through these ponderosa pines and give you a great opportunity for warblers. So, and also what I'd like to share about red-faced warblers is that they're often lower in the lower story of the trees. So you wouldn't find a red-faced warbler way up on the top of these ponderosa pines. We would find them lower in some of the brush and lower parts of the pines, but they like the brush. But if you look up higher, that's where you'll see Grace's warbler or pygmy nuthatch. And then down lower, you'll get Cordilleran flycatcher, you'll get spotted towhee down lower. So you just got to make sure to look at all the different levels as you walk down this road. And actually, let's get off of that. Boom. So I'll show you how it's not a very long road. You can see just how long it is right there. It's probably maybe a quarter of a mile, maybe 3/10 of a mile. And then it peters out right here, and then it gives you a vista over like the east and north slopes of the Catalina Mountains. It's a very awesome look. All right, let's go to the next spots. 2 more spots, all right? So after you bird Incinerator Ridge and look for all those warblers, then you go to Bear Wallow. I got this picture of a northern saw-whet owl. Here's another owl spot. And like I said, this owl right here, you could go up and start listening for it anytime. So they're around all through the winter. They're a very hardy owl. They're kind of a more northern owl. So we're at the southern end of their range. And I'll be honest, I've gone and I was going to say look, but most of the time I just listen for owls. I've gone and listened for northern saw-whet numerous times and missed it every time. But I have friends who go up to this specific spot around Bear Wallow and Palisades Visitor Center who hear it pretty consistently. I just miss it. So I don't know if it's my ears or my timing or what it is. One more little story about Alec. That same morning when Brock and I had that experience with the meteor and the flammulated owl, we were here at Bear Wallow and we were listening for northern saw-whet. Nothing. And I told you, like, normally I don't use playback. Well, this time I was just waiting for it and I really wanted to add it to our list. So I tried the playback and nothing. And I was playing it for my Jeep. And so we went and tried a different spot, not planning on using playback, but evidently, and we started hearing the owl. I was like, oh, I hear the saw-whet owl. I hear the saw-whet owl. Oh, and so like we marked it off. And then I realized that my phone had gotten turned on and was playing through my Jeep speakers. Not very loud, but it started playing through my Jeep speakers, and realized that what we were hearing wasn't northern saw-whet owl, but it was the recording on my phone. I felt really bad about that. We realized that, so we didn't count it. But Bear Wallow is just up from the Palisades Visitor Center. So here's our little handy map. Here's where Incinerator Ridge Road is at. And just a little further up, this is Palisades, and you can see there's a lot of different activity here with Boy Scout and Girl Scout camps and everything. And you keep going along the highway. And you can do some birding around this Mount Bigelow Road as well. But actually where I like to go is on this upper Bear Wallow Road. And let's go to this layer so you can see what it looks like. Look how lush and green this section right here is. It's a beautiful spot to walk through. So let's see if I can get a view here as well. It's not going to allow me to go back in there. But here's the view of the road, of the Catalina Highway. And you pull into this road. This gate will be open after a certain calendar time. And you drive down here, and then you just park kind of on the right, and there's a trail that goes down this slope, and you can walk through this little, not really a wash, but it's kind of like a creek area. And there's a trail that goes through there. And it's a beautiful spot for like hermit thrushes, possible red-breasted nuthatches, because you get into not just ponderosa pine, but into a lot of other mixed conifers like Douglas fir. Red-breasted nuthatches love the Douglas fir. And so you walk through there, and that's also what saw-whet owls love. And so you can park along that road at different points and just listen for the northern saw-whet owl. Warbling vireo of western tanagers, broad-tailed hummingbirds, house wrens love this area. Lots of American robins as well. Here's what northern saw-whet owl sounds like. It's a very fast-paced whistle. It's going to get louder here. So you can just imagine a small, this is a really small owl, just a little bigger than an elf owl, and just like put his whole body into this whistle that he's doing. It's very cool to hear. I've heard him up in Washington State. I have not heard him here in Arizona, but I know this is a good spot for him. Maybe you'll have better luck than me. All right. Here's the last spot that I really want to talk about. This is up at the very top of Mount Lemmon, about 8,000 foot elevation. And it's Summer Haven. So it's a little town that's up there. And there's a spot with some feeders. I'll show you where in Summer Haven, where you can watch the different feeders at the realty office. But black-headed grosbeaks and pine siskins and yellow-eyed juncos and Steller's jays, white-breasted nuthatches, red-breasted nuthatches, they all come into those feeders, along with hummingbirds like this Rivoli's hummingbird or broad-tailed hummingbird. It's also been a spot historically for blue-throated mountain gem, one of the few spots here in the Catalinas where you can see blue-throated mountain gems. They're an even bigger hummingbird than the Rivoli's hummingbird, and they got big white spots on the ends of their tail when they fly, so that helps to identify them. And they just changed from a hummingbird to a mountain gem. So that's always a pretty cool thing too. And band-tailed pigeons could be another bird to look for up in the Summer Haven area. And here's a map of what that looks like. Let's go there. So it's just a little further. There's also a ski area up there on Mount Lemmon. If you've never been up there, it's pretty cool to check out. The ski valley is over here, and there's a little restaurant called Iron Door, which has great pie. So you could go and check that out. There's a big overview lookout on the north side of the Catalinas. I found this is a good spot to look for blue-throated mountain gem as well, because they have hummingbird feeders that line the Iron Door. So be sure to check that out as well. But most of the time I'll come here into the Summer Haven area, maybe get a cookie at the cookie cabin, even though they're really expensive, but they're also really good. And the Sawmill Run restaurant, they have amazingly, I don't know what it is about this area up here, but also really good pie. Strawberry rhubarb pie here at Sawmill Run restaurant. But the here's Mount Lemmon Realty. This spot right here is where the feeders are at. So what I usually do is there's a big parking area right here. So park in this area and then just walk up here. Nice little walking pathway. And I like to park myself right up against the kind of on the sidewalk, looking up towards the Mount Lemon Realty, there's hummingbird feeders and other seed feeders right in here, right at the base of that house. And so I'll just watch the birds come to the feeders and just stand here. There's a public bathroom right here at the community center. So always a good thing to know about where the public bathrooms are at. So go and check that out. And then as you go further, you can park here and walk around, but then you can also drive down to the end of this Sabino Canyon Park. That'll take you to Marshall Gulch. Now, the fire of 2020 did burn a lot of this area again. It's experienced a lot of different fires in the past 25 years or so. So it's not what it once was, but this has been a good spot for red-faced warbler, red-breasted nuthatch, greater peewee, and then also in these trails around Marshall Gulch, when you get into some of the more brushy habitat, Virginia's warbler. It's also a really good spot here at Marshall Gulch. So I'm gonna go back to here. And then, so I always like to give a rare bird of the month. So here's a bird that you can be thinking about as you're out in higher elevation. So this is a higher elevation rare bird. It's called a tufted flycatcher. Now, there hasn't been a tufted flycatcher reported from the Catalinas before, but it's just a matter of time. April, May is the best time to be looking for this guy in higher elevation in our Sky Islands. So there's been reports before in Madera Canyon, and then on the north side of the Santa Rita Mountains. There's been reports of it in Ramsey Canyon and Carr Canyon of the Huachucas. There's been reports in the Chiricahuas. I'm trying to remember what canyon that was seen in. I think Rucker Canyon in the Chiricahuas. So it's just a matter of time before it just makes one simple little jump up to the Catalinas. And so what stands out about it is it's got this really buffy, almost orange color, but then the tuft, the big crest, kind of like a phainopepla or like a cardinal or like a cedar waxwing, is a really specific crest that comes up with this really cinnamony kind of buffy face. And yeah, so he'll really stand out, but I think it's time that one shows up in the Catalina. So just be looking like around Rose Canyon Lake, Incinerator Ridge, maybe that Bear Canyon area, like the Chihuahua Pine picnic area, or higher, even higher elevation like Bear Wallow. They'll be anywhere from about that Bear Canyon to Bear Wallow. So just be looking for that, and who knows, it could be you that finds it. That would be pretty awesome. So that's how I would approach the Catalina Highway, and I hope that you have a chance to go and experience that in the next couple months. Do you guys have any questions that I might be able to help with, or maybe it doesn't have to specifically do with Catalina Highway, but another location that you want to visit in the next couple months? I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have there.
My question, Luke, is your next tips on IDing birds. Are you going to do flycatchers?
We can do that for sure. And I'm talking with Homer Hansen about doing a flycatchers workshop at the festival this year. So I think we're going to have that in a specific festival flycatcher field trip during the festival as well.
Yeah, that would me personally. I would appreciate that.
Allison says MPIDs, please. Yes, I mean, so the MPIDs, like differentiating between dusky and Hammonds and Pacific Slope and gray and Cordillera, and it just goes on and on, right? There's always so much to learn, and so much of it is by voice and so much of it is by habitat. So lots of different things there. Laura asked about Rose Canyon Lake. Is it accessible at all hours? Yes, I believe it is. Having camped there at different times, I do like to go outing when I'm out camping, not just where I'm at. So I'll drive around and I'll come back and leave at all sorts of crazy times. and they've never had the gate closed. Although it's been a couple of years since I've been up there as well too, so I don't think that's changed. Let's see.
So before you move on, I just looked it up. So it
Oh,
says,
Laura also said Karma was punishing Luke for using playback. Yeah, it was. I felt really bad at that. It's so true, Laura. Oh, EJ has some questions about Madera Canyon. Yeah, so Madera Canyon is fantastic as well during April and May. And the difference for Madera than Catalina Mountains is that you have the opportunity for elegant trogon, right? So elegant trogon is the one that everyone wants to see when they go to Madera. And I would say, don't get frustrated if you don't see or hear it on the first time. Sometimes it just takes a few different times to go up there to find one. What I would suggest is parking somewhere around the Madera picnic area. You'll see it on your right as you go up. You'll go past White House picnic area and you'll get to Madera picnic area. I'd park there and access the trail that goes along the creek that goes up. And just spend time walking on that trail, looking around where there might be watering holes. If you're looking specifically for elegant trogon, many times they're kind of like a mid-level story. So often they won't be, sometimes they are really low, but not as often. Sometimes they're really high, but not as often. I mostly see them mid-level. And often in April and May, I'll hear them before I see them. So just be familiar with their call, with their croaking call. If you don't see or hear the elegant trogon along that trail, depending on accessibility issues that you might have, if you're able to, I would go and park at the end of the Madera Canyon Road, where there's kind of like angled parking. And from that angled parking at the top, there's a trail that goes up called Carrie Nation Trail, which is also part of Old Baldy Trail. And I'd walk up Carrie Nation maybe about 400 to 600 yards, maybe a quarter of a mile at the most, and just take your time and look and listen for elegant trogon going up there. And it's also a great spot beginning the first part of May for sulfur-bellied flycatcher. A sulfur-bellied flycatcher is really hard to find in the Catalina Mountains, usually just in that Bear Canyon area, but it's easier to find in Madera Canyon along that Carrie Nation Trail in the big tall sycamores. So when you find the sycamores, that's when you can look for sulfur-bellied flycatcher too. And I just realized, Kirsten, I think I might have cut you off. I'm sorry. You're going to look at something.
no, that's okay. I just put the info in the chat for Rose Canyon Lake hours. So it doesn't say hours of the day, but it does specify the season. It's only open April to October.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, you do have to park up there next to the Catalina Highway and walk down into it. And it's a couple miles to get all the way to the lake, and it's really downhill. And then you have to walk back up. So it's much easier once they open up the gate. Irene mentioned, maybe doing an overnight field trip to Mount Lemmon. Definitely, it has a lot of potential. Ramona was asking if I had to choose one place here, where would you go? If it was going up Mount Lemmon, I would say Rose Canyon Lake. I really like that spot. Or if I was going, and that's if I'm just birding. If I'm going for a hike, I would do the Sycamore Reservoir Trail that goes out of Gordon Hirabashi. And then I've talked about it at other times, but if I was just had to go to one spot in all Southeast Arizona, it'd be Sycamore Canyon in the Pajaritos. And if you're interested in Sycamore Canyon, I can direct you to a YouTube video of a past virtual event that I've done on Sycamore Canyon. Awesome. And let's see, I'm just checking the chat, see if there's anything else, and feel free to unmute yourself if there's something else. Oh yeah, don't go, Bruce says, don't go to Madeira on Easter Sunday or Mother's Day. Yeah, so Madeira is a lot like the Catalina Highway. If you're retired and you can go during the week, do it. Don't go on the weekends. I'm already kind of trying to figure out how to do everything. My son and I are going to be doing our birdathon on April 23rd. It's a Saturday this year. And as I was talking, I was thinking, oh man, I'm gonna have to battle the crowds on the 23rd to do that, and wondering how that's going to work out, because it gets so busy on the weekends. All right, I think that's everything in the chat, unless there's something else. Yeah, I just want to say thank you and good birding. And again, if you ever have any questions, just let me know.
So we'll
Thanks.
be sending out the link to the recording today or tomorrow. Thanks,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Luke. That was terrific.
I appreciate it, Ron. Have a good one.
Okay, now.
You recognize your voice.